if you live under a rock, then of course, then you already know the news. I guess it's true this time, but we'll see. Saudi Arabia money always comes into play. Um, but the Undertaker, it looks like he really, and we had this conversation last week, has called it a career. So we're gonna spend the next couple of minutes of recapping the Undertaker, what we loved about the character, the Undertaker, of course,
It's
Mark
it's like
Calloway and
what the
everything like that.
Undertaker said in an article with Forbes and the different wrestling articles that he was interviewed from. He said there's nothing left in the sponge. There's no water left in the sponge, and in that case, that means his career is done.
Yeah, so and if you haven't checked out, there's a couple of specials I've watched on the WWE Network this week. I got to watch the Brothers of Destruction interview with Kane interviewing the Undertaker, which was awesome. I watched the Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast, Broken Skull Sessions with Stone Cold and the Undertaker, and I got to watch the Paul Bearer special. So if you haven't checked out those three things on the network, go watch them. They're phenomenal. They the one thing I will give WWE is this, Alex. I will give them props for their
Yeah,
documentaries.
their documentaries are really good, including the last ride. I watched that whole thing the whole
Yes,
way through. That was
I
really
made you
good.
watch that.
It was
I
very
forced
good
you to watch it. Remember, you didn't watch it at first, and I forced you to watch it. You knew about it, but I forced you to
to check it
to,
out. Yeah,
to
and
check it out,
it
and
makes you understand the Undertaker from a different point of view.
it does because he goes off tangent with Mark Calloway a little bit. That's really what it is. And so let's get to it. First off, Alex, what did you think of the ceremony? I know it wasn't normal because the fans weren't there, but they had the fan noise piped in with the Undertaker chants. But what were your thoughts overall of how they did the ceremony and the send off for him?
I thought the ceremony was good. You saw Jeff Hardy come out and give his props to the Undertaker and say goodbye to the Undertaker. You saw Rikishi come out, Shane McMahon, a bunch of WWE Hall of Famers like the Godfather. It was really cool to see, and it was very memorable for the Undertaker for him to go out that way and have everyone come out and say their piece and really talk about what the Undertaker meant to them in their careers.
Well, I think what was cool was they brought back with like Henry Godwinn and Savio Vega and the Godfather and Rikishi. They brought back BSK, which of course if you which is the I believe they're called the Bone Street Crew, um, which is the group the Undertaker was in. You know, you had the Click and then you had BSK. It
Mm-hmm.
was a Click kind of group. So you brought back all those guys, and I thought it was interesting. And like you alluded to, Jeff Hardy wearing the Undertaker face paint as well with the symbol on it. You had Ric Flair, Kevin Nash. Kane came out dressed as Kane, which I thought was cool. Mick Foley was awesome to see. Shane McMahon. Probably missing some people, but the list goes on and on about the people that did show up to this, and I thought it was phenomenal how they did it. Like I said, Saudi Arabia money always talks. I don't do. I feel like the Undertaker is probably done wrestling in the United States.
I think he's done in the United States,
I
but
don't think he's done in Saudi
no,
Arabia. If they're gonna offer him a crap ton of money,
he's
he's
gonna
gonna go.
take it.
He's
Yeah.
gonna take it. You know, Shawn Michaels was there, of course, Triple H. Um, you really, Alex, you really have to watch that Brothers of Destruction special. All those specials that I mentioned, the Broken Skull sessions, the Brothers of Destruction special, and the Paul Bear special. You have to watch them on the network. And
I actually have a WrestleMania streak list here. So the first one for me is the first one is Undertaker versus Mankind, Hell in a Cell. Number two is Undertaker versus Michaels, career versus streak match.
well, wait, hold on. You said it was a WrestleMania list.
It's just a list of like different Undertaker matches from like
Oh, did you say? I thought you
yeah,
said WrestleMania.
from
Okay.
like best to worst.
No, I thought you said WrestleMania list. I'm
No,
sorry.
it's
Okay,
best to
no, it's
worst.
actually okay.
So number two is Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels. Number three is Undertaker versus Triple H, Hell in a Cell. Number four is Undertaker versus CM Punk, and number five is Undertaker versus Brock Lesnar.
So which Undertaker ship? I guess 29. at Mania 29.
The best one for me was the second one, Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels career versus streak match.
No, I'm saying, which CM Punk one do you have? Is it the
I think it's the 29, yeah.
29 one?
Yeah, the 29 one.
I was at that one, actually. That was a good one. That's what took all the sales out of the fans at that point. They didn't care about the other matches because that match was so good. I like that list.
And then you have I have an old school list here too. The old school list is Undertaker versus Giant Gonzalez,
Oh, God.
Undertaker versus Jake Roberts, Undertaker versus Psycho Sid, and the Undertaker versus Big Boss Man.
I like how the Undertaker described this match with Giant Gonzalez. He said it was an awful performance. He thought it was one of his worst matches. It's so funny. I tell you what. He brought up an interesting point on the Brothers of Destruction special, and I didn't think about it, and I had to think for a few minutes. I said, I'm trying to think of something when he said it, and that was, what is the best? All right, so Alex, I'll ask you this first. In your opinion, what is the best storytelling you've ever witnessed by WWE?
The best storytelling by WWE for me was the Corporation versus the Undertaker. That was a great storyline that they put together when they had the Undertaker come back and save The Rock and take out the Corporation. That was a good moment, and it was a big way for the Undertaker to return.
As
and
the American Badass.
As the American Badass, yeah. That was one of my favorite Undertaker moments there.
So, this isn't even best Undertaker moment. He brought up a great point. The best storytelling in WWE, and in my opinion, one of the best storylines in wrestling history, in my opinion, was The Undertaker and Kane. I think the whole thing with him being the brother, he burned the funeral home down, The Undertaker, killing his parents. Kane was scarred. Paul Bearer was Kane's father, who, of course, had a relationship with Undertaker's mother. Of course, none of this is real. It's all storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
So just say that's why it's called storytelling. But I think that was, because I remember it very well. I was in elementary school watching this, and I was baffled by everything because you're seeing this guy in Kane, who's this big red monster, the same size as the Undertaker, does everything like the Undertaker. The storytelling with the family was phenomenal.
I agree with you, and
I thought the whole thing was great. I mean, Paul Bearer being a part of that was ginormous for the whole storytelling.
It definitely was, because Paul Bearer is the father of destruction. He basically brought up Kane and the Undertaker. He basically made them have rivalries together, and the way they did it was amazing over the years. And that's what I love about Undertaker and most of the Attitude Era. That's what most of the Attitude Era was surrounded around.
Yeah, it's true. And you look at it, and like I said, Alex, when you get a chance to watch that interview, when the Undertaker, because he was a big fan of Kane's, he hated the Isaac Yankem character as the dentist.
Oh yeah, the dentist.
Which was, Undertaker said was, Kane said it was god awful. But Undertaker said when he found out that they were doing the storyline, he had a bunch of ideas in his head going around, like this, you know what I mean, all these different things. And you watch it, and it's, I just find it fascinating because you know what it was, Alex. It's a storyline that didn't just last in the Attitude Era. It's a storyline that lasted for 20 plus years. From WrestleMania 20 to later on SmackDown again with Paul Bearer coming back. I mean, it's just when they were a tag team together, Kane and Undertaker. This is a storyline that lasted forever.
Oh yeah, it lasted for decades, and it was great.
Yeah, and I think, look, both are future Hall of Famers. I think it was one of the greatest storytelling moments of all time because you look at it like this too. At WrestleMania 14, The Undertaker won the match, but nobody had ever kicked out of the Tombstone before.
No.
And Kane kicked out of 2 of them, and they had to do a third one, and he still beat up Undertaker at the end. And then they had the Inferno match with the fire, and it's the whole. Then remember Kane buried the Undertaker alive, and he went from the American Badass back to being that character. I look at that. That's Alex. You said it best. That's storytelling at its best.
Exactly, it is.
And you're just you don't get that anymore.
No, you really don't get that anymore. Even with WWE, you don't see anything like that anymore.
No, it's a lot of. I believe. I don't know. Even AEW. I don't know if a lot of companies will ever go that deep and in depth to really focus on the whole family background of something like that. Because you're talking about, like I said, Paul Bearer was the manager, then Paul Bearer was he worked for Undertaker's parents, he had a relationship with his mom, and he did that, and he burned on the thing, and there was a lot of going on. To me, the Undertaker is a legend. And people are gonna say. People are going to go, no crap, Sherlock. And I'm going to say, yeah, I know what I'm saying is, but the fact of the matter is this. I don't think it was my childhood, man. And, the one dream match I always wanted to see, who my favorite of all time is, Alex?
Sting.
And that's Sting. And that's always the talk of we wanted to see Sting Undertaker. We're never probably ever going to get to see that. I think it's too late anyway. I do have ideas of how they can make it work, but it's unfortunate that it probably will not happen. But the Undertaker, man, is WWE. He is that. He's WWF. He is that. He was the soldier for that company. He didn't go to WCW like other guys.
No, he didn't.
And to me, I respect that because WWE was a sinking ship during the Monday Night Wars, but the ship didn't sink fully because of the leadership of the Undertaker. And
exactly,
WWE screwed up too.
Exactly, the Undertaker was a locker room leader for most of those wrestlers.
Wrestle Court.
Yeah, Wrestle Court.
He was the judge. He was always the judge with something. But look, it's unfortunate the Undertaker didn't get to have his send off in front of a crowd. But I tell you what, his last match with AJ Styles was awesome in the Boneyard match. And I think he's somebody that when you look at it. Like I said, I think his career in the United States is done. I think he'll make appearances, but I think he'll still wrestle in Saudi Arabia because that money and everything.
Yeah.
But I think the WrestleMania stuff is over.
To me, the most memorable WrestleMania match was probably the one against Randy Orton because when he appeared at Survivor Series after Team SmackDown won. And he heard the bell go off, and Undertaker came out, and you saw that Randy Orton was next on the hit list. So
yeah, well, because that was a rivalry. Because remember, Orton challenged Taker to that match, and that was in, I believe, April of that year. So they fought. Taker won, and then later on in that year, Orton burned the casket or whatever it was, and then he came back, and I love that storyline between Undertaker and Orton. To me, look, another one, Mankind and Undertaker, not just Hell in a Cell, Buried Alive, Boiler Room Brawl.
Yeah, the Boiler Room Brawl.
Paul Bearer being on top of the shark cage at the Garden for Survivor Series when Undertaker came back and he ascended from the ceiling. So there's just so many different things, like I said. And the first time I saw Undertaker live was at WrestleMania 20 when he came back as a dead man. I was at that show with my father. I was in 7th grade. And I was ecstatic when he came back. I couldn't believe it. The match sucked. But it wasn't even about the match. It was just about the character that came back.
It was the same. It was similar for me when the Undertaker showed up at WrestleMania 33. It was mostly about the character and what he was going to do and how he was going to deliver in the ring with that character. And that's what the Undertaker has been very good at for decades, years even. And the thing that was disappointing to me is I wish the Undertaker could have won that match against Roman Reigns, because I rather would have had him win than just go out on his back. But I understand why he wanted to go out on his back. He wanted to kind of pass the torch on to Roman
Yeah.
Reigns.